He became a household name almost overnight. Jeremiah Harris, better known as Jerry, was the breakout star of the Netflix docuseries Cheer. His positivity, charisma, and larger-than-life personality made him one of the most beloved figures on the show. He built an enormous following on Instagram, quickly gaining millions of fans who were inspired by his energy and charm. To many, Jerry represented joy, encouragement, and the best of youth culture. But in 2020, that image came crashing down. What began as a story of hope and fame ended with criminal charges, national outrage, and a prison sentence that revealed a darker reality behind the screen. Jerry Harris was born in 1999 and grew up in Illinois. From a young age, he faced personal challenges, including the death of his mother when he was still a child. Despite hardship, he found purpose in cheerleading. He became part of the Navarro College cheer team, and when Netflix launched Cheer in 2020, Jerry's infectious smile and supportive personality made him an instant fan favorite. He appeared on talk shows, interacted with celebrities, and even interviewed public figures on red carpets. His rise symbolized the way reality, television, and social media could transform someone into a national sensation. But how does such rapid, intense fame affect an individual's judgment and sense of responsibility? Before we analyze the suspicions in the case, please let me know where you saw this video. I will read it all and spread it around the world. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel to be the first to receive notifications when there are new videos. While Jerry's public image shone bright, behind the scenes, he was reportedly misusing his fame and influence. By September 2020, reports surfaced that Jerry had been engaging in inappropriate online communication with underage fans. Federal investigators quickly became involved. What they discovered shocked those who had admired him. Court documents later revealed that Jerry had repeatedly contacted teenagers online, pressuring them for images and conversations that were entirely unlawful. Prosecutors argued that his celebrity status and charm made it easier for him to cross boundaries with fans who looked up to him. The revelation shattered his once wholesome reputation. Almost immediately after the allegations came to light, Netflix distanced itself and sponsors cut ties. For fans who had seen him as the heart of Cheer, the news was devastating. The idea that someone who had been marketed as a role model could use fame to take advantage of young supporters left audiences stunned and angry. Parents who had encouraged their children to watch Cheer suddenly saw the series in a different light, and the show itself addressed the case in later episodes. In December 2020, Jerry was arrested on federal charges. The legal process was slow, complicated by the pandemic, but prosecutors continued building their case. By February 2022, Jerry pleaded guilty to 2 counts related to unlawful online conduct with minors. In court, his defense team highlighted his difficult upbringing and asked for leniency, suggesting that he needed treatment and a second chance. The prosecution, however, emphasized the seriousness of his actions and the deep harm inflicted on vulnerable teenagers. The sentencing took place in July 2022. In a Chicago courtroom, Jerry Harris was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 8 years of supervised release. The judge acknowledged his difficult past, but made clear that his actions had betrayed the trust of his fans and caused lasting damage to those involved. Prosecutors stated that Harris had abused his position as a rising celebrity, turning what should have been a positive influence into an opportunity for exploitation. The fallout was enormous. News outlets across the country covered the case extensively. Social media platforms were flooded with shock, disappointment, and anger from those who had once admired him. Cheer, once celebrated as a feel-good hit, became permanently associated with the scandal. For the victims and their families, the sentence brought some accountability, though no punishment could undo the harm done. Jerry Harris now serves his sentence in federal prison. He is no longer the smiling, upbeat star millions once adored. Instead, he is a cautionary tale about how fame and influence can be abused and how quickly a carefully constructed public image can collapse when the truth comes out. The story of Jerry Harris reminds audiences that even those presented as role models can harbor dangerous secrets. The impact of this case continues to ripple through both the cheerleading community and the world of online influencers. It raised questions about the responsibility of platforms and production companies to protect vulnerable fans, and about how quickly unchecked celebrity status can lead to an abuse of power. While Jerry once represented hope and encouragement, today he stands as an example of betrayal and downfall. His 12-year sentence ensures that he will remain behind bars for much of his adult life, serving time for actions that undermine the very trust his fame was built on. For many who once looked up to him, the story is not just about the crimes, but about the disillusionment of seeing someone they admired turn out to be the opposite of what they believed. When a public figure, built up by media and fan adoration, commits a profound breach of trust, what is the responsibility of the corporations and platforms that amplified their influence? YouTube emerged as a launchpad for aspiring musicians hoping to build an audience online. Among them was Austin Jones, a young singer from Illinois who cultivated a following with his a cappella covers and original songs. His channel grew to over 500,000 subscribers, a significant portion of whom were teenagers drawn to his clean-cut image and positive music. To the public, Jones appeared to be another success story in the burgeoning world of digital performers. However, in 2017, investigators uncovered that behind this public persona, he was leveraging his platform for activities that constituted serious criminal behavior. 2 years later, this discovery would culminate in a decade-long federal prison sentence. Born in 1992 and raised in the suburbs of Chicago, Austin Jones began his YouTube career in 2007. He methodically built an audience by posting covers of popular songs and arrangements that showcased his vocal talents. By 2014, his subscriber base had grown significantly, allowing him to transition from an online creator to a touring performer, releasing original material and conducting live shows. Jones cultivated a reputation as a wholesome performer. This image led many fans, particularly younger ones, to view him as approachable and trustworthy. This perception, however, did not align with his private conduct. In 2017, federal authorities initiated an investigation following reports concerning his private online communications with underage fans. According to court records, Jones had utilized his status as an influencer to coerce teenagers into sending him inappropriate video content. The Federal Bureau of Investigation subsequently took over the case, and after compiling evidence, agents arrested him in June of that year. Jones faced multiple charges related to the receipt of unlawful materials from minors. This case raises a critical question. How does the parasocial, one-sided relationship between an influencer and a fan create a dynamic that can be exploited? Before we analyze the suspicions in the case, please let me know where you saw this video. I will read it all and spread it around the world. His arrest caused significant disruption within the YouTube community. Many of his fellow creators immediately distanced themselves, and his channel, once associated with music and positivity, became a focal point for public anger. The legal proceedings continued for the next 2 years. While Jones initially contested some of the accusations, the evidence against him was substantial. Prosecutors detailed how he had systematically targeted young fans who admired him, manipulating them into complying with requests that were both exploitative and illegal. The case exposed a profound abuse of the trust he had cultivated. The very audience that built his career was the one he ultimately victimized. His defense team presented him as a first-time offender dealing with personal issues. The prosecution, however, focused on the severity of his conduct and the lasting impact on the victims. In February 2019, Austin Jones pleaded guilty to a federal felony charge. 3 months later, in May 2019, he appeared for sentencing in a Chicago courtroom. The judge imposed a sentence of 10 years in federal prison, specifically noting the deliberate and repeated pattern of his behavior. The court also mandated a lengthy period of supervised release following his prison term to monitor his conduct and prevent reoffense. For the victims and their families, the sentence represented legal accountability, even if the harm inflicted could not be erased. The public reaction was immediate. News organizations reported on the case, emphasizing the stark contrast between his harmless public reputation and the serious criminal conduct occurring privately. Former fans expressed feelings of shock and betrayal. The YouTube community, which was already facing scrutiny over content moderation and user safety, faced renewed questions about how creators with large youth followings are vetted and monitored by the platforms that host them. For Jones, the sentence marked the permanent end of his career. His music content was promptly removed from major platforms, and his name became associated with one of the most significant scandals involving an influencer. He is currently serving his sentence in federal prison, with a projected release date no earlier than 2027. Upon release, his legal status as a registered offender will remain with him for life, effectively preventing him from ever returning to a similar position of public influence. The case of Austin Jones is frequently cited as a cautionary tale. It demonstrates how the power of online celebrity can be used in destructive ways, exploiting the very trust that fame generates. It also highlights the critical importance of safeguarding young audiences in digital environments, where influencers have direct and often unsupervised access to their fans. For platforms like YouTube, the scandal underscored the need for more stringent oversight and improved reporting mechanisms to identify misconduct before it escalates. Jones's downfall is a stark reminder that not all influencers utilize their platforms responsibly. Behind the music videos and the carefully crafted persona was an individual whose actions caused lasting harm. His 10-year sentence, while perceived by some as lenient, affirmed that there are significant consequences for such an abuse of influence. For those who once followed him, the story serves as a difficult lesson in how social media appearances can conceal disturbing realities. Austin Jones is scheduled to remain incarcerated until the late 2022, long after his peers in the YouTube music scene have moved on. His name, once associated with music and fan admiration, is now permanently linked to a troubling chapter in the history of influencer culture. When the parasocial relationship between an influencer and their audience is a key to their success, what responsibility do the platforms that profit from this dynamic have in preventing its exploitation? In 2018, a quiet Florida neighborhood became the center of a tragedy that would eventually capture global attention. The incident involved Cameron Herrin, a young man whose identity was partially shaped by his Ford Mustang and a growing presence on TikTok, where he participated in social media car culture. A single, reckless decision on the road resulted in the deaths of 2 individuals and irrevocably changed his own future. The event led not only to a devastating case of vehicular homicide, but also to one of the most viral sentencing discussions in recent history. Cameron Herrin was born in 1999 Inches, Texas, and later moved with his family to Tampa, Florida. By the time he graduated from Tampa Catholic High School in 2018, he received a new Ford Mustang as a graduation gift, a vehicle that became a significant part of his identity. Like many young people of his generation, Herrin was active on TikTok and Instagram, sharing content related to his car and lifestyle. He was part of a broader social media car culture that often emphasizes vehicle performance and speed. On the morning of the 23rd of May 2018, Cameron Herrin and his friend, John Barrineau, were driving alongside each other on Bayshore Boulevard, a well-known waterfront road in Tampa. Witnesses later reported that the 2 vehicles appeared to be racing, accelerating significantly beyond the posted speed limit. At that same time, Jessica Reisinger Raubenold, 24, was pushing her 1-year-old daughter, Lilia, in a stroller across the boulevard. In a matter of seconds, Herrin's Mustang struck them at high speed. Both the mother and daughter sustained fatal injuries at the scene. The incident shocked the local community. Bayshore Boulevard, typically known as a scenic route for pedestrians and families, became the site of one of the city's most tragic traffic incidents. Law enforcement took both Herrin and Barano into custody. Subsequent investigation determined that Herrin's vehicle had reached a speed exceeding 100 miles per hour in an area where the posted speed limit was 45 miles per hour. The event dominated local headlines and led to public demands for accountability regarding the issue of street racing in the area. The legal process extended over the next 3 years. Herrin was charged with 2 counts of vehicular homicide and 1 count of unlawful racing. The prosecution argued that the outcome was not a simple accident, but rather the foreseeable consequence of extremely reckless choices. They emphasized the devastating and permanent impact on the victim's family. Herrin's defense acknowledged his responsibility for the incident, but petitioned the court to consider mitigating factors such as his youth at the time of the event and his lack of a prior criminal record. The case gained an unusual amount of attention due to Herrin's online presence. As the trial approached, videos of him on TikTok began to circulate widely. Online fan communities emerged, creating and sharing edits of his court appearances. This created a polarized public reaction. Some sympathized with his situation, while others strongly condemned the idolization of an individual responsible for 2 deaths. The hashtag number Justice for Cameron Herrin accumulated millions of views as people worldwide debated the case. This phenomenon raises an important question. How does viral social media attention and the formation of online fan groups impact the public perception of justice? On the 8th of April 2021, the sentence was delivered. In a Tampa courtroom, Cameron Herrin was sentenced to 24 years in state prison. The judge issued a stern message, indicating the sentence reflected the profound magnitude of the tragedy and the critical need to deter others from similar acts of reckless driving. The husband of Jessica Reisinger Raubenold provided an emotional impact statement, describing the irreplaceable loss of his wife and child. For the victim's family, the sentence represented legal accountability, though it could not reverse their loss. This 24-year term was one of the longest sentences handed down in Florida for vehicular homicide. The public and online response was immediate and deeply divided. Some commentators felt the sentence was too harsh for a young person with no prior offenses, while others argued it was an appropriate consequence for the loss of 2 lives. The online discussion intensified, with international media outlets covering the case. Herrin's name trended globally, and dedicated TikTok accounts analyzed the situation, often portraying him as a complex figure. It remains one of the rare criminal cases to achieve true global viral status on social media. Today, Cameron Herrin is serving his sentence in a Florida state prison. He will be in his 42nd before he becomes eligible for release. His case continues to be debated, focusing on the severity of the punishment versus the age of the offender. Supporters argue his youth should have been a more significant mitigating factor, while critics emphasize the permanent loss of life caused by his decision to drive recklessly. Ultimately, the story of Cameron Herrin is a stark illustration of choices and irreversible consequences. A young man, a high-performance car, and a moment of perceived thrill-seeking resulted in a lifetime of consequences and profound loss for another family. For the victim's family, no prison term could equate to their loss. For the city of Tampa, the case prompted new crackdowns on street racing, serving as a sobering reminder of how quickly reckless driving can destroy lives. For the online world, it demonstrated how a courtroom tragedy can become intertwined with influencer culture. Debated by millions far removed from the local community it devastated. When a legal case becomes viral content, fueled by curated images and an individual's online persona, how do we as a society maintain the critical distinction between that public image and the objective reality of the actions taken? To millions of followers on Instagram, he appeared to be the definition of success. Ramon Abbas, known as Ray Hushpuppy, curated a feed filled with images of private jets, luxury cars, designer clothes, and 5-star hotels. He projected an image of immense wealth, fame, and influence. But behind this glamorous facade was an elaborate criminal enterprise. This enterprise was not built on legitimate business, but on sophisticated fraud schemes. In 2020, federal agents located him. By 2022, a U.S. court identified him as one of the most prolific money launderers globally, resulting in a prison sentence of more than a decade and the dismantling of the online empire he had so publicly displayed. Ramon Abbas was born in Nigeria in 1982. He came from modest beginnings, but by his 30s, had transformed himself into a social media icon. On Instagram, he projected an image of limitless success. With over 2 million followers, Hushpuppy gained notoriety for showcasing rare supercars, custom designer apparel, and first-class travel to exotic locations. For many young followers globally, he seemed to be tangible proof that ambition and effort could lead to an extravagant lifestyle. But was this lifestyle truly the result of hustle? Or was it a carefully constructed illusion designed to mask a different kind of operation? Those displays of wealth were not funded by legitimate enterprise. They were financed by global cybercrime. According to investigators, Hushpuppy was a central figure in an international network specializing in business email compromise, BEC scams, bank fraud, and money laundering. These schemes targeted corporations, financial institutions, and even government entities. The operation involved infiltrating email systems and deceiving companies into wiring funds to fraudulent accounts. Abbas's role was to then launder the proceeds, moving millions of dollars through a complex network of shell companies and foreign accounts. The scale of these operations was vast. In one instance, prosecutors stated his group attempted to divert $124 million from an English Premier League soccer club. This specific plan was intercepted before completion. In another case, they successfully defrauded a major law firm in the United States. The FBI estimated that over just an 18-month period, Abbas and his network were involved in attempts to launder approximately $300 million. His arrest occurred in June 2020 in Dubai. Local authorities, collaborating with the FBI, executed a raid on his luxury apartment in the Palazzo Versace complex. Inside, they discovered a wealth of evidence: hard drives, smartphones, and documents linking him to numerous fraudulent transactions. Images from the raid captured the fleet of luxury cars parked outside, all procured with illicit funds. For many of his Instagram followers, the news was disorienting. The individual they had regarded as a lifestyle icon was suddenly revealed to be an international financial criminal. Following his extradition to the United States, Abbas faced federal charges in Los Angeles. In July 2021, he pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy to engage in money laundering. Court documents further detailed the scope of his operations, which included an attempt to defraud a Qatari businessman of millions under the pretense of securing loans for a development project. Prosecutors were clear that Hushpuppy was not a minor participant. He was a central figure in a vast criminal network that inflicted substantial financial harm across multiple continents. In November 2022, the case concluded. A federal judge sentenced Ramon Abbas to 135 months, just over 11 years in federal prison. He was also ordered to pay $1.7 million in restitution to 2 of the victims. During the sentencing, the judge described him as one of the world's most prolific money launderers, an individual who had exploited global networks for personal enrichment, while openly flaunting the proceeds of his activities to millions online. The reaction was immediate and widespread. Media outlets across the US, UK, Nigeria, and other nations covered the story, highlighting how Abbas had leveraged his Instagram fame as a cover for his criminal enterprises. For law enforcement, the case represented a significant success in apprehending a high-profile operative who had functioned on a massive scale while brazenly displaying the results. For the online community, it served as a powerful reminder of how meticulously crafted influencer personas can conceal deep-seated corruption and deception. Even after his conviction, the case continues to generate discussion. Documentaries and scripted projects are reportedly in development, examining the intersection of influencer culture and international crime. His story exemplifies an alarming trend where the pursuit of online fame and luxury appears to motivate serious criminal activity. Today, Ramon Abbas serves his sentence in a U.S. federal prison. The extravagant lifestyle he once showcased is gone. In its place, he faces more than a decade of incarceration and the legacy of a social media empire built entirely on fraud. For his victims, the mandated restitution will only partially repair the financial damage inflicted. The case stands as a stark warning. Not everything presented online is real, and the consequences for maintaining such a deception can be severe. Ramon Abbas's story transcends simple fraud. It is a case study in how social media can be weaponized to lure, manipulate, and mislead. What appeared to be the glamorous life of a self-made millionaire was, in reality, the public face of a global criminal operation. Stripped of the wealth and the platform he once commanded, Hushpuppy is now remembered not for his lifestyle, but for the sentence that defines his legacy. As audiences increasingly consume content that blurs the line between aspiration and reality, how can we develop the critical discernment needed to recognize when an online persona is not just curated, but constructed to conceal a criminal enterprise? He wanted to be known for fast cars and daring stunts, the kind of videos that earn instant likes on TikTok and Instagram. But at just 17 years old, Gala crossed a line that no audience could ever forgive. One night in January 2022, in Delray Beach, Florida, Noah's white BMW M5 collided with another vehicle at 151 miles per hour. The crash claimed 6 lives instantly, turning a teenager's pursuit of online attention into one of the deadliest social media-related tragedies in recent memory. Noah Thomas Gala grew up in Wellington, Florida, in a comfortable suburban environment. Like many teenagers, he was drawn to the rush of social media fame, the kind that rewards speed, danger, and luxury. His posts showed him behind the wheel of high-end cars, revving engines and racing through open stretches of highway. To his followers, it was thrilling content. But to those who knew him personally, it was deeply concerning. One of his recurring challenges invited viewers to guess his driving speed, sometimes offering small cash prizes to the closest guess. The line between entertainment and real-world danger blurred quickly, and in January 2022, that blur had devastating consequences. That evening, Noah got behind the wheel of his BMW and accelerated down U.S. Highway 441. Ahead of him was a gray Nissan Rogue carrying 6 farm workers returning home from a long day of labor. Traveling at 151 miles per hour, his car struck theirs with overwhelming force. The Nissan was destroyed, and all 6 occupants lost their lives at the scene. Investigators and first responders described the aftermath as one of the most severe crashes in Palm Beach County history. Noah was treated for minor injuries, but evidence from his phone told a deeper story. Videos of reckless driving, guess my speed posts, and footage featuring the same BMW involved in the collision. Prosecutors argued this was not merely an accident, but the foreseeable result of consistent high-risk behavior motivated by online validation. As the community mourned, the victims, 6 hard-working immigrants who had come to support their families, were remembered with grief and compassion. Their loss left behind emotional and financial voids that could never be filled. Because Noah was 17 at the time, the question arose, should he be tried as a juvenile or as an adult? Prosecutors insisted on adult charges, emphasizing the severity and scale of the tragedy. The court agreed. Noah faced 6 counts of vehicular homicide, each carrying the possibility of significant prison time, potentially decades behind bars. Over the next 2 years, the case slowly wound its way through the legal system. Families of the victims waited for justice, while Noah's attorneys negotiated. In January 2025, just before trial, a plea deal was reached. Noah pleaded guilty to all 6 counts. The court sentenced him to 12 years and 6 months in state prison, followed by 15 years of probation. Additionally, he was ordered to produce a public service announcement on the dangers of reckless driving, a requirement meant to transform the same digital platforms that once fueled his recklessness into tools for awareness and prevention. For the victims' families, no punishment could restore what was lost. They spoke in court about their pain, the empty chairs at dinner tables, the children left without fathers, and the profound sense of injustice that lingers after such a tragedy. National media outlets soon picked up the story. Headlines described Noah as the TikTok speed influencer who killed 6 people. Debates followed. Was a 12-year sentence enough? Should his age have earned him leniency, or did the scale of the tragedy demand a harsher penalty? Whatever one's view, Noah's story became a modern cautionary tale, a warning about the real-world consequences of online clout chasing. When the quest for digital approval collides with physical danger, the outcome can be irreversible. Today, Noah Gala serves his sentence in a Florida state prison. By the time he is released, his social media fame will be long forgotten. The thrill of fast cars and viral videos has been replaced by the long reality of accountability. What began as an attempt to impress followers ended with unimaginable loss. 6 lives cut short, 6 families forever changed, and 1 young man whose future now serves as a public reminder of how dangerous online validation can become. In an age where one viral moment can define a person's identity, how can young creators balance the pursuit of digital fame with the responsibility to protect real human lives? She presented herself as a glamorous TikTok influencer, showcasing an aspirational lifestyle of high-end fashion and luxury cars. But behind the curated social media presence, Mahek Bukhari was involved in a situation that would irrevocably alter the course of her life. In February 2022, a late-night vehicle pursuit on the roads of Leicestershire escalated into one of the UK's most notable criminal cases in recent years. At the centre of the investigation were Mahek, her mother, and a plan that stemmed from circumstances far more serious than online disputes. At the time of the events, Mahek Bukhari was 24 years old. Raised in Stoke-on-Trent, she had built a significant following on TikTok by sharing fashion advice, lifestyle content, and videos that projected an image of success. While not among the platform's top-tier creators, her online persona suggested a life of glamour that attracted many young followers. However, away from the camera, Mahek's home life was complicated. Her mother, Ansreen, was involved in a relationship with a man named Saqib Hussain. This relationship would eventually devolve into a situation involving alleged blackmail and threats, pulling Mahek directly into the conflict. Saqib Hussain, along with his friend Hashim Ijazuddin, became central figures in the case after Saqib allegedly threatened to release private messages and photographs related to his affair with Ansreen unless he was paid a sum of money. Fearing the potential damage to their reputation, Mahek and her mother reportedly formulated a plan. They arranged to meet Saqib and Hashim late at night under the pretense of resolving the issue. In reality, it was a planned confrontation. Mahek and Ansreen assembled a group of associates and arranged for the 2 men to meet them at a location near Leicester. On the night of the 11th of February 2022, Saqib and Hashim arrived in a silver Skoda. Shortly after, Mahek's group arrived in 2 separate vehicles. What ensued was not a discussion, but a high-speed pursuit. Witnesses later described seeing the vehicles driving at high speeds along the A46 dual carriageway. At a critical moment, one of the pursuing cars made forceful contact with the rear of the Skoda, causing it to lose control and leave the roadway. The vehicle struck the central barrier, and a vehicle fire subsequently occurred. Both Saqib and Hashim sustained fatal injuries in the incident. Investigators quickly determined that the crash was not an accident. A key piece of evidence was an emergency call made by Saqib during the pursuit. In the recording, he could be heard telling dispatchers that individuals in 2 cars were attempting to force him off the road. This call captured the events of his final moments and confirmed that the crash was the result of a deliberate act. Forensic analysis of the vehicle wreckage showed impact points consistent with it being intentionally pushed. Within days, law enforcement arrested Mahek, her mother, and several of their associates. The case drew significant media attention across the UK as the public grappled with the involvement of a social media influencer in such a serious incident. When the trial began in 2023, the prosecution presented its case, arguing that Mahek helped orchestrate the events to protect her mother's reputation. The defense argued that there was no intent to cause lethal harm, but the evidence, including text messages, witness statements, and the emergency call, proved compelling for the jury. In August 2023, the jury returned guilty verdicts. Mahek Bukhari and her mother, Ansreen, were convicted of the murders of Saqib Hussain and Hashim Ijazuddin. Several other co-defendants were found guilty of manslaughter. During sentencing, the presiding judge, Justice Snee, remarked on the circumstances of the case, telling Mahek that her tawdry fame and self-obsession had contributed to a mindset that led to these tragic events. He described the act as premeditated and driven by a fear of public exposure. The sentences reflected the gravity of the offenses. Mahek Bukhari was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 31 years and 8 months before being eligible for parole. Her mother, Ansreen, received a life sentence with a minimum of 26 years and 9 months. The outcome provided legal resolution for the families of the 2 young men who lost their lives in the incident. The case had a profound impact, with Mahek's social media accounts becoming forums for public discussion about the crime. News outlets emphasized the stark contrast between her carefully constructed online image and the reality of her actions. The case serves as a cautionary tale about the pressures of maintaining a public image and the extreme measures some may take to protect it. Today, Mahek Bukhari is incarcerated, her once active TikTok account silent. Her name is no longer associated with lifestyle content, but with a serious criminal conviction. She will be well into middle age before she is eligible for parole, with no guarantee of release. An attempt to manage a public persona ultimately concluded with shattered families and a future spent behind bars. This case highlights the extreme lengths taken to protect a curated public image. It prompts us to consider, in an era dominated by social media, where do we draw the line between managing one's reputation and concealing truths that could lead to devastating consequences? On Instagram, she cultivated an image as a self-made millionaire, populating her feed with luxury cars, designer handbags, and motivational messages. Ashley Grayson branded herself as an online business coach, asserting she had cracked the code to financial success through digital marketing. To her followers, she represented an inspirational figure who had built wealth and was willing to teach others her methods. But in 2021, behind the curated posts and paid seminars, a different narrative began to unfold. What began as an online feud with rivals escalated into a real-world criminal plot, culminating in a federal conviction. Ashley Grayson, then in her mid-32s and based in Dallas, Texas, marketed herself as an entrepreneur capable of turning social media savvy into a business empire. By selling courses on financial freedom, she attracted a clientele that believed in her methods. The luxury items displayed on her Instagram account served as perceived proof of her success. However, as her online profile expanded, so did her conflicts. By 2021, she was involved in a pronounced feud with another online course creator, exchanging public accusations. This raises the question: in the competitive world of online coaching, where does professional rivalry end and personal animosity begin? What might have remained a digital dispute soon escalated. According to federal prosecutors, Ashley began to view her rival as a threat requiring intervention. Investigators later determined this plot allegedly expanded to include 2 other individuals, a former boyfriend and another critic who had spoken against her. Instead of addressing these conflicts publicly, authorities alleged she sought a permanent and illicit resolution. She approached a couple, inquiring if they would be willing to carry out these plans on her behalf. Unbeknownst to her, the couple she contacted immediately informed law enforcement. In cooperation with investigators, the couple recorded subsequent conversations with Ashley, In these recordings, she was reportedly captured discussing her willingness to pay for the planned incidents and the specific amounts she was willing to offer. In 2022, federal authorities formally charged Ashley Grayson in connection with a murder-for-hire scheme. The case drew significant attention, largely due to the stark contrast between her public-facing brand and the nature of the accusations. As her trial approached in 2024, more details of this dichotomy emerged. The prosecution portrayed her as manipulative and highly protective of her image, willing to take extreme measures to silence critics. During the trial, the jury was presented with the video and audio recording. They heard the discussions regarding payments and the intended targets, which left little ambiguity regarding her intent. The defense team contended that she had been misunderstood or perhaps entrapped, but the direct evidence proved highly persuasive. Following deliberations, the jury convicted Ashley Grayson on the murder-for-hire charge. In March 2024, a federal judge imposed the maximum possible sentence for the offense, 120 months, 10 years, in federal prison, without the possibility of parole. Following the sentencing, the U.S. Attorney's Office issued a statement, noting that this case was an example of online feuds and senseless rivalries transitioning into the real world, and emphasized that such escalations would not be tolerated. The fall from grace was stark. Only months prior, Ashley had been actively encouraging followers to invest in her courses. Now, she is a federal inmate, her online presence erased and her reputation destroyed. The case became a subject of intense discussion on social media, with former fans and critics alike expressing disbelief. Many noted that they had previously questioned the sustainability of her millionaire status, pointing to perceived inconsistencies in her business model. For the true crime community, her case became a prominent cautionary tale about how ego, greed, and the high stakes of social media reputation can motivate extreme behavior. Today, Ashley Grayson is serving her sentence in a federal facility. She will be approaching 45 years of age by the time she is eligible for release, returning to a world where her brand is permanently dismantled. The lessons she once marketed on success have been superseded by a legacy of deception and criminality. By attempting to silence her rivals, she ultimately lost her freedom, her credibility, and the digital empire she worked to build. Instead of being remembered as a millionaire mentor, she is now remembered as the influencer who allegedly attempted to turn online feuds into real-world violence. In a digital world where online reputation is often equated with personal worth and financial success, how do we as a society prevent digital conflicts from escalating into irreversible, real-world harm? For a time, he appeared to be one of the internet's most generous figures. Igbara, known online as J. Mazini, gained significant fame on Instagram by posting viral videos of himself distributing large sums of cash to strangers. He documented these encounters, providing money to fast food workers, delivery drivers, and others, cultivating an image of kindness, faith, and significant wealth. These clips attracted millions of views and amassed hundreds of thousands of followers. To many, he appeared to be a devout businessman sharing his success. In 2021, however, this perception of generosity was exposed as an illusion. Behind the staged charitable acts, investigators uncovered a network of fraud schemes that had misappropriated millions of dollars from unsuspecting victims, including individuals within his own community. Before we analyze the suspicions in the case, please let me know where you saw this video. I will read it all and spread it around the world. J. Mazini, or Igbara, grew up in New Jersey in a tight-knit Muslim family. By his late 20s, he was branding himself online as a successful entrepreneur. He frequently accompanied his cash distribution videos with inspirational captions referencing faith and family values. He also launched a clothing line, Mazini Italia, presenting himself as a model of prosperity and devotion. The wealth he displayed, however, was not derived from legitimate business ventures. According to prosecutors, Igbara was operating Ponzi schemes and cryptocurrency scams on a massive scale. Between 2019 and 2021, Igbara solicited investments by promising safe, above-market returns. He informed victims that he was managing successful ventures and would personally oversee their funds. In reality, he was allegedly using new investors' capital to pay returns to earlier ones, the defining characteristic of a Ponzi scheme. The total amount involved grew into the millions. A particularly troubling aspect of the case was the targeting of his own religious community in New York, leveraging shared trust and personal relationships. How does such trust, especially within a close-knit community, become a vector for financial exploitation? Many victims later stated they believed they were supporting a fellow member of their faith, only to discover their savings had disappeared. As his Instagram presence expanded, Igbara allegedly added another dimension to his activities. He began advertising cryptocurrency transactions, claiming he would purchase Bitcoin or other digital currencies from followers at prices significantly above market value. Attracted by the prospect of easy profit, numerous individuals sent him their cryptocurrency. Instead of completing the transactions as promised, Igbara allegedly provided fraudulent wire receipts or made only partial payments, retaining the majority of the assets. Court documents indicated he acquired at least $8 million through these crypto-related schemes alone. The public persona of generosity was, in reality, concealing activities that depleted the financial accounts of those who trusted him. By 2021, the operation began to unravel as investigators closed in. Victims started filing official complaints when the promised payments failed to materialize. Federal agents subsequently uncovered forged documents, fraudulent bank transfers, and text messages where Igbara had assured individuals that their money was forthcoming. In March 2021, he was arrested on federal fraud charges. News of his arrest disseminated rapidly, shocking many followers who had previously shared his videos as examples of goodwill. The Instagram personality, who had cultivated a reputation based on giving, was now facing accusations of systemic taking. The legal process proceeded over the next 3 years. Prosecutors charged him with wire fraud conspiracy, and money laundering. In April 2024, Igbara pleaded guilty to all counts. At his sentencing, the U.S. Attorney's Office stated plainly that the prosecution unmasked him as a fraudster, stressing that he had shamelessly used his faith and fame to manipulate victims. The court concurred, sentencing him to 84 months, 7 years, in federal prison and ordering him to forfeit $10 million. He also faces additional restitution requirements, meaning he will be financially indebted to his victims long after his release. The sentence reflected both the significant financial scale of the operation and the profound breach of trust. The victims were not anonymous investors. They included people from his own religious center, friends who had known him for years, and online followers who had believed his public persona. Many individuals lost life savings, retirement funds, or money designated for their children's education. The impact extended far beyond the monetary figures. The case became a widely discussed topic online, with commentators highlighting the stark contrast between the performative generosity in his videos and the financial deception occurring behind the scenes. His downfall demonstrated how easily a social media persona can be fabricated and how difficult it can be for an audience to distinguish reality from performance. For platforms like Instagram, the case illustrated how individuals can exploit the infrastructure to build influence through ostentatious displays and emotionally resonant narratives, only to misuse that influence. Today, Mazini Igbara is serving his federal prison sentence, stripped of the image he spent years constructing. The man once praised as an inspirational giver is now remembered as an influencer who allegedly defrauded his way to internet fame. He will be approaching 40 upon his release, returning to a world where his reputation is permanently damaged and his financial obligations remain. His story is a powerful reminder that not every generous gesture seen online is genuine. Sometimes, The hand seen distributing money on camera is concealing activities that take it away when the cameras are off. For those who once viewed him as a role model, the truth was both difficult and sobering. Behind the viral moments was an individual willing to betray his own community for financial gain. When an online personality uses public acts of charity and shared faith to build trust, how can a community better protect itself from those who might seek to exploit that very trust for personal gain? For years, she was recognized as the wholesome embodiment of family life on YouTube. Ruby Franke cultivated an audience of over 2.5 million subscribers on her channel, 8 Passengers, where she documented the daily routines of raising 6 children in suburban Utah. Viewers perceived her as a dedicated mother, offering advice on discipline, navigating parenting challenges, and sharing the everyday experiences of family life. Her channel was part of the burgeoning phenomenon of family vlogging, where ordinary households attained digital celebrity status. To her followers, Ruby seemed like a dependable source of guidance on child rearing. However, in August 2023, this carefully constructed image crumbled. What appeared to be a flawless family concealed an environment of severe discipline and mistreatment that shocked the world when it came to light. Before we analyze the suspicions in the case, please let me know where you saw this video. I will read it all and spread it around the world. Ruby Franke launched her YouTube channel in 2015, joining a wave of family vloggers who built careers by transforming their daily lives into marketable content. At its peak, 8 Passengers garnered millions of viewers who tuned in for parenting tips, family vacations, and faith-based advice. Ruby presented herself as a strict but affectionate mother, unafraid to enforce discipline. Yet, over time, even some loyal viewers began to voice concerns. In certain videos, Ruby's approach to parenting appeared unusually harsh. She once discussed withholding food from a child as punishment and, on another occasion, described compelling her son to sleep on a beanbag for an extended period following a minor infraction. While some dismissed these instances as strict parenting, others viewed them as significant warning signs. These warning signs became undeniable in late summer 2023. On August 30, one of Ruby's children escaped from a residence owned by Jody Hildebrandt, Ruby's business partner and the founder of a counseling group called Connections. The child appeared significantly underweight, displayed numerous injuries, and sought assistance from a neighbor, asking for food and water. The neighbor immediately contacted law enforcement. Upon arrival, officers discovered deeply disturbing conditions within the home. Children suffering from malnutrition, with visible injuries and evidence of extreme neglect. Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt were both arrested that same day on multiple counts of aggravated child abuse. The case deeply distressed the public. News reports indicated that prosecutors drew comparisons between the living conditions in the household and those of a detention facility. The children were allegedly deprived of food, physically restrained, and isolated from external contact. The stark contrast between Ruby's smiling YouTube persona and the reality behind closed doors ignited widespread outrage. Individuals who had once relied on her parenting advice were left questioning how so many indicators of distress could have gone unaddressed for so long. In court, the details were presented with harrowing clarity. Prosecutors submitted evidence of prolonged mistreatment, detailing how Ruby and Hildebrandt allegedly enforced a punitive regimen that resulted in the children being severely underweight and emotionally traumatized. Defense attorneys attempted to argue that Ruby had been unduly influenced by Hildebrandt, whom they described as manipulative, but Ruby herself admitted culpability. In February 2024, she accepted a plea agreement and pleaded guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. Each count carried a potential sentence of 1 to 15 years under Utah law. At sentencing, the judge imposed consecutive terms, meaning Ruby could face up to 30 years in prison if the maximum sentence was applied to each count. Prosecutors characterized her actions as severe acts of child abuse, while the court emphasized the profound and lasting impact on her children. Outside the courthouse, crowds of onlookers and reporters gathered, many expressing disbelief that the same individual they had admired online as a parenting role model could be responsible for such cruelty. Ruby's dramatic downfall was not merely a personal tragedy, but also prompted public scrutiny of the family vlogging industry. The case raised critical questions about the adequacy of protections for children featured in monetized content, and the responsibility of platforms like YouTube to intervene when clear warning signs emerge. Viewers who once posted supportive comments on Ruby's videos now flooded social media with messages of anger and sorrow. Former fans expressed a sense of complicity for having supported her channel without understanding the true circumstances behind the camera. For Ruby Franke, her career as a YouTube personality has ended. Instead of uploading content to millions of subscribers, she now faces decades of incarceration. For her children, the journey toward healing will likely be extensive. And for the broader public, the case serves as a sobering reminder that the carefully curated images seen online can obscure deeply troubling realities. Ruby Franke's story represents a profound breach of trust. A woman who built her fame on portraying an ideal family life allegedly subjected her own children to severe suffering. She prioritized control over authenticity, and when the truth finally emerged, her online presence collapsed. She will now spend a significant portion of her life in prison, remembered not as a family vlogger, but as a stark example of the potential dangers hidden beneath the surface of social media perfection. This case forces us to confront difficult questions about the ethics of monetizing family life and the responsibility of online platforms. What measures can be implemented to better safeguard children who are the subjects of digital content? And where does the line between parental authority and child exploitation truly lie in the public eye? Known online as JinnKid, Ali Abulaban was a personality recognized for his comedic skits and impressions. However, behind the carefully crafted videos and a following of nearly 1 million, a more complex reality was unfolding. In October 2021, his public image as a TikTok comedian converged with a private life characterized by escalating jealousy and obsession. What began as a story of digital success ultimately resulted in the deaths of 2 individuals, a trial that captured public attention, and a sentence ensuring the responsible party will spend the remainder of his life incarcerated. Ali Abulaban was born in 1995 and raised in Virginia before relocating to San Diego, California. For years, he pursued his ambition of becoming a full-time entertainer while working various jobs. He found his primary platform on TikTok, where, under the name JinnKid, he cultivated a large following with impersonations of characters like Tony Montana from Scarface, relatable sketches, and light-hearted comedic content. His audience grew to nearly 1 million followers, a number that can significantly alter a person's life in the world of social media. This rapid rise to fame presented an image of success, but did it also conceal underlying pressures? Before we analyze the suspicions in the case, please let me know where you saw this video. I will read it all and spread it around the world. To his audience, Ali appeared to be a rising digital star with a young family and a promising future. For those closer to him, the situation was markedly different. Behind the scenes, Ali's marriage to his wife, Anna, was deteriorating. Friends would later testify that their relationship had become fraught with conflict, jealousy, and a lack of trust. By 2021, Anna had separated from him and was attempting to start a new life, though they remained in contact for the sake of their young daughter. While she sought separation, Ali found it difficult to move on. His focus shifted from his online career to intensely monitoring Anna's activities, an obsession that would soon have tragic consequences. On the 21st of October 2021, Anna was at her San Diego apartment with a male friend. Unbeknownst to her, Ali had installed a listening device on their daughter's iPad, which allowed him to monitor conversations within the apartment remotely. That afternoon, Ali used the device and believed he overheard Anna with another man. In a state of agitation, he acquired a firearm, drove to the apartment complex, and used his key to enter. Inside, he discharged the firearm, inflicting fatal injuries on both Anna and her friend. After the incident, Ali left the apartment but made no significant effort to conceal his involvement. He contacted his mother and admitted to what had occurred, stating that he had hurt Anna. He then proceeded to pick up his daughter from school before being apprehended by San Diego police later that day. His arrest marked the end of an influencer's career, which had masked deep personal turmoil. The case gained national media attention, with some outlets labeling it the TikTok murders. Investigators uncovered the extent of Ali's surveillance, revealing how he had been monitoring Anna through the iPad application. This discovery highlighted the calculated nature of his actions. Prosecutors portrayed him as a controlling and jealous individual. The forensic evidence, combined with his own admissions, left little ambiguity about the events of that afternoon. When the trial commenced, prosecutors charged him with 2 counts of first-degree murder, with enhancements for using a firearm. The defense team contended that Ali had acted in the heat of passion, but this argument did not persuade the jury. The evidence pointing to premeditation was substantial, including the installation of the listening app, his deliberate drive to the apartment, and the decision to bring a loaded weapon. How does the justice system differentiate between a spontaneous act of passion and a premeditated one when emotions are high? In 2024, following years of legal proceedings, the jury found him guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing was emotionally charged, with family members of the victims delivering statements about the profound loss they had endured. The prosecution advocated for the maximum possible sentence, emphasizing the severity of the individual's actions. The judge concurred, and in September 2024, Ali Abulaban was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 50 years for the firearm enhancements. The judge directly addressed him, stating that he would die in prison and describing his actions as selfish. For the families of the victims, the sentence provided a measure of legal justice, but could not alleviate their grief. For Ali, it signified the end of his journey from social media personality to a lifelong inmate in a maximum security prison. The story serves as a stark reminder that a public persona can disguise serious personal issues and that unchecked obsession can lead to irreversible tragedy. Ali Abulaban will not return to social media or to a life outside of prison. His daughter, left to grow up without her parents, remains the most tragic victim in this sequence of events. What was once a brand associated with family comedy is now a cautionary tale about the grave consequences of domestic conflict and the darker aspects of online fame. In an age of curated online lives, how can we, as a society, become better at recognizing the warning signs of control and domestic turmoil before they escalate to tragedy?